Right, so continuing with the tutorial series, we're back down in sector 10, and we're going to move some of these units.
We have picked up tracks.
So this is very important. This is the first time we're actually going to be picking up tracks. So if we zoom in, you will see underneath this particular vehicle there are some tracks. Now it's important to realize or to remember that the tracks are not directional. So you're going to have to try and figure out where these tracks are heading from, or possibly where they're heading to. If you go to the tactical, the strategic map, and you zoom in on the area, you will see, if you take the NATO symbols off, you've got this button here, which is the enemy activity detection history button. Very important. If you push that button, here you'll see it'll give you a little bit of information, and what it's telling you is that tracks have been found at this hex, and these hexes here with the red outline are hexes that have been traversed by this particular vehicle or any other vehicle that can detect tracks in the last 2 turns. So it gives you an indication of where not to look, because the chances of the tracks being there are going to be pretty low because you've already covered those areas. So if we go back into this area, what you can do with this particular vehicle, because this is now a point of interest, you can actually use this place marker at location action button. Let me show you what it does. If you click it,
Popping smoke. Over.
you will see the unit pops green smoke, but if you now go onto the strategic map, it's now automatically placed a marker in that area. So very important, just for your own information, to keep track of what areas you have to focus on. So this lock key over here is, if you click it, it means that this view, or this enemy activity detection view, will always be on. So whenever you go out of the map and go into the map, it'll now automatically be present. Right, so now we've found some tracks. What we're going to have to do now is do a 360 around this area to try and find more tracks, to try and get an idea of where the direction the enemy is heading from or heading to, because they're heading from an arms cache and they're heading to a destination, which could be a village or a road or a clinic or a farm. Right, so let's go in. So now we click on this unit and let's try go straight up. No tracks there. Let's go left.
We have picked up tracks. Over.
Right, we picked up some more tracks. So now you can see we picked up another track. So let's keep moving in that
We
direction.
have picked up tracks. Over.
Right, another set of tracks. So now we're onto something. What we do now know is that they're either coming from here or heading here. One way or the other. At one end of this path will be an arms cache, and at the other end of the path will be an objective. You can also use the enemy activity detection history button on this map. And by the way, the control key, the left control key, is a shortcut to bring up this view. So if we click it, this brings up that information onto this map. So that shows us quite clearly now where they certainly very unlikely to be, or there won't be any tracks in this area, because that's your path over the last 2 turns. Remember, the enemy leaves a trail of the last 2 turns behind them of tracks. After that, the tracks start to disappear. So right, so let's click on this vehicle. Let's head one more up. Now that shows us there aren't any more tracks. Now it doesn't mean the enemy didn't come from this direction. It just means that the trail has gone dead on that side of the tracks. So it would be quite clever to maybe investigate this area further, as well as investigating this area over here. Right, so let's see what other resources we have in the area, because we might actually want to bring more troops or more infantry that can track into this area to try and figure out what is going on in this area. So if we look inside the base, we have a Biffle IFV and we have a logistics truck. So these logistic trucks, once they've been unloaded, you can just basically deploy them and send them back to their base, and they'll go back to the store's base ready for another mission to bring new stores in. Remember, you've only got 5 trucks at any one time. Right, so back to the base. So yeah, in the base, it would be a good idea maybe to get some more infantry here. So let's go to recruit a new unit, recruit another infantry unit, and there's the infantry unit here. The infantry unit cannot deploy because it's just been deployed into the sector. So it doesn't have any action points, but it doesn't mean it can't be loaded. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the load troop and load them onto this MRAP Biffle, and we're going to deploy the Biffle, and we're going to bring the Biffle into this area, because this is the hot spot that we're currently investigating. So let's bring them in there. Right, so if we zoom in and we now use the left control, or we click on this button here, you'll see we're trying to pick up on this track pathing here. So what we want to do is we want to unload the infantry and send them into this area to see if they can help track where these particular insurgents are moving. So to unload, you click on the vehicle, you click here on the unit cargo button, and then you click which square you want them to unload to, and then infantry unload. These infantry won't be able to move in this turn because they were only just deployed into the sector, but next turn we can deploy them and move them into this region and try and pick up on this track. Right, so we've got some action there. If we go to the strategic map, you can see we've got it marked. We can also now see the path taken now by that buff will bring in the infantry, because if there were any tracks on those hexes, they also would have been picked up. So this is a hot spot. We definitely want to hunt this down and follow these tracks, and we find the insurgency. Right, so let's go back to the tactical map. Let's go into the ambulance. Now this ambulance is on its way to this village, so we're going to go into the village. There's a red cross, meaning it needs medical treatment. This particular ambulance is carrying 4 units of medicine, so we're going to then use medical for villagers, and you'll see the red cross disappears and the hearts and minds will go up. Let's take this vehicle back to the road and we can deploy it anywhere else we need it. Let's just have a look in the area. Everything else, that one over there is going to need some medicine, so let's maybe start moving in that direction. Right, what else we got in the area? We've got infantry here, but they've been moved. We've got the villagers. Everything seems to be on track. We have engineers that have moved. They just built the water tower. So let's go to sector 20. Right, so here we have sector 20, and let's see what's going on here. Right, so if we click the left control button or the enemy activity button, we can see these are the hexes we've traversed in the last 2 turns. There's no enemy tracks at the moment, so let's just keep moving this infantry unit towards that village, and ultimately they can go look for intel. This vehicle can continue building a road, and we're going to end up building a military base somewhere close by, so we're going to go here and build another road, and I think we go over here, and here we now build another base. So you can build up to 3 additional bases. It's a good idea to build a base here because you're going to need a support infrastructure for units operating in this area. So we click on the build a base, and then a new base is built. You right click to disengage it. Now if we click on here, bases that you build only have 2 slots, so they're pretty small. So this is the vehicle that just built the base, and you can see it's got half repairs, but we cannot repair it because there's no spares in this particular base yet. You're going to have to bring it by truck. There is 10 fuel, however, so we can refuel this truck by clicking on this button, and you can see the vehicle gets refueled. We'll move it out of this turn because we don't need it to sit here. This is going to be used for infantry mostly to operate from. So this is the new base. If we exit it and we now go to our supply officer, you can see over here that the base is now operational and tells you the status of its stores, just like any other base. You'll also see that your battle group is also operational at the moment, which gives you the same information on what stores are currently in that unit. So it would be a good idea to send some stores to this base. I think we send some spares and probably some fuel and some rations. So let's go with some rations, some fuel and some spares. And this is in the sector 20 area, so let's send it towards that direction. Or alternatively, what you can do is you can click this button and then actually click on exactly the destination you wanted to go to. So we wanted to go to that base, so let's do it. So that truck is on its way, and it's going to automatically now, turn for turn, head towards that base to resupply it. You could, if you liked, you could take a truck from here, pick up some stores, and move them across should you wish to do so. Right now we don't really have much political points, so we don't want to start recruiting support trucks and the like until we have a sort of a better balance in the political points. Right, so moving on, this truck has finished offloading and we're just sending it back to the base. We can go back here and have a look. Here it is. You can see it's in a state of sort of disrepair. It needs some fuel. We can either click on these buttons or we can just simply go to this guy and he does everything automatically up to its maximum. You'll notice the repairs once again don't go to 100% because there is no workshop currently in the base. Right, just something to remember. Right, so we keep moving along. Let's have a look at our UNITA units. I'm going to move him into the village and I'm going to replenish his rations, which only UNITA units can do inside villages. SADF cannot, but it does cost you political points, and let's keep them moving in that direction. As for these guys, I'm going to move them into this village and just keep them moving in that general direction. You actually want to use your UNITA troops to scout the area looking for bases, as well as trying to capture these Angolan towns. If we go into the HQ of UNITA, situated at Jumbo, we can then go into the recruitment, and we can now see these guys are almost fully trained and they're almost ready for recruitment. So they've done 4 turns, so next turn we will be able to actually deploy these units. These ones we can't because they need training, and they can't be trained, as I mentioned earlier, because there's no South African Defence Force Special Forces unit in the base. Right. So let's proceed and let's see what units are still available. Let's go to the skip to next unit button. And we have this vehicle. Right, so this one is still busy with the tracking process, so let's move it up a bit. Right, so there's no tracks up in this side, but once again, it doesn't mean there's nothing yet. It could have come from here 2 turns ago. This could be a path, just a tail of the enemy, but we'll keep going. Right, let's see what other units are available. All units in the field have moved. We click on this button to see if there's any ones with orders. All orders have been executed, which really brings this turn to a conclusion. So if we look at our hearts and minds, you can see we are pretty much static. The reason why it's showing 51 and 50 here is because that was the last turn. You'll see it'll update it now. This column here shows the actual points that were affected in the villages. This is the average over 15 villages. So this is the one that's going to affect this score over here, but this just shows you the magnitude per village, or the village that it actually operated in. So for example, that one case we had where the village intimidation was detected at the village, it cost 10 points out of the 100. So you can imagine now that village is currently lowering its hearts and minds. If we go to the tactical map, it's this village over here, because there's the red circle. So it's quite clever if you put a marker there, because next turn that red circle is going to go away. So looking at the strategic map before we end the turn, it just gives you an overview of where you're at. You've got tracks over here, which you can just put the lock back on, and you can actually see you've got tracking. So we're busy with tracking operations here. We've got some motorized infantry, and we've got some infantry coming out of the MRAP. On this side we haven't picked up any tracks, but we built a base and we're busy supplying these units. I think if we look at this clinic, it's got 3, so it has dispensed. So if we look at the administration, you're going to see health and sanitation. We got an income of 800 for that. So keeping up with the health is not just keeping diseases at bay, it also helps with political points, because it gets support from the population back home, the fact that you're treating these guys properly. Right, and I think on that note we're going to end the turn. And that brings us to the United Nations. As I mentioned earlier, this comes up every 6 or 7 turns, and I'm now going to explain this screen. But I think let's end the video at this point, and then I'll resume the next video, number 9, and we'll talk about the effects of the United Nations.